assignment of switch controls for front and rear 3-point hitch. This will allow the front and rear 3-point hitches to be controlled by other switches and levers. For instance, we can make the front and rear 3-point hitch be controlled by the raise and lower buttons on the joystick controller, the front and rear and side-to-side movement of the crossgate lever, or any of the linear hydraulic switches down below. To go ahead and enter this service function, we're going to go into tractor information. We want to go into hydraulics because we're going to be using the hydraulic control levers. And right here we're going to go into the 5th icon down to change the configuration of the hydraulic levers. At this point we will see that we got our basic fence settings. From here, we can also swap all of the functions from the crossgate to the joystick by hitting this bottom button and back and forth. That way we can put the blue and the yellow on top and the red and the green down below, or vice versa. But we can also go and change a lot of the other levers for assigning different valves as we've seen before. But working with the front and rear 3-point hitch, let's say that we want to take the crossgate lever, the forward and back, we want to change that to the front 3-point hitch. We got to realize that we have to scroll down because there's a lot of other options in here with all 8 valves. Here's our front 3-point. If we did not want to save this change, we would hit the X and exit out, but we do want to change it, so we're going to hit the green check mark. We can see now that the crossgate lever front and rear is now going to be controlled by out to the front 3-point hitch. Now we want to take the first linear switch for the number 5 valve here. We're going to take it and we're going to change it down to the rear 3-point hitch, and we're going to save that change. We mentioned before that we can have multiple switches control a single valve. Well, we can do this with the front and rear 3-point hitch as well. We're going to take the joystick controller number 1 switch and we are going to make that to also control the front 3-point. At this point we have the number 1 switch on the joystick and the crossgate forward and back controlling the front 3-point, and we also have the number 1 linear switch controlling the rear 3-point hitch. Over here we want to go to our information screen, and we want to make sure that we are on the very top one for information of the front and rear 3-point hitches. From this screen we can go and see what's happening with all of our front and rear 3-point hitch functions. We're going to see that we're raised up to 79 on the front and 80% on the rear. We're going to see that our speeds are about 20% raise and lower for the front, and we're going to see that our rear is 50% for lowering speed, and we've got our draft control settings. We also got our locks, and a DW is going to be for down pressure. From here I want to back out a screen, and I want to go out to this page where I can select my front and rear 3-point hitches. The first thing that I want to do is look at my upper limit is set at 79%. And we're going to see down on my control that my lower limit is not all the way down. We're going to set it up about halfway. So we're going to have upper and lower limits set. I will then exit out of here and go into my rear 3-point hitch, and I'll see that my upper limit here is at 80%. So we're going to allow the rear 3-point hitch to go a little bit higher. And we're going to see my raising and lowering speeds. I want to go back home here. Right now we have configured it to where the crossgate lever, the number 1 switch on the joystick, and the first linear switch will control our front and rear linkages. And we're going to notice is I'm going to grab a hold of my crossgate lever and I'm going to pull it forward and back. However, we're going to come up here to where we can monitor, and we're going to see that the crossgate lever is not controlling the front 3-point hitch, neither is the linear switch, and neither is the switch on the joystick controller. The reason this is, we still have our locks put on. To release the locks, we can either go through the terminal or we can simply come down and tug up on the 3-point hitch switches. At this point, we will see that we just turned the rear off, and that's indicated by no more lock in this window, and I'm going to reach down and hit the front and pop it up to unlock it as well. Now at this point, when I grab a hold of my crossgate lever and I push it down, we're going to see that it is lowering, and where the lock was, you'll see that we're getting lowering and we're getting raising. However, this does not work the same as the front and rear 3-point hitch switches did. When we're using linear levers or crossgate or the buttons on the joystick, when we pull on the lever, that's when it's going to lift and lower, but it does not go to the upper and lower limits. However, if we pull back on the crossgate lever and we keep holding it up, it will not go all the way to 100%, it will stop at the upper limits. And the same as we had the number 1 linear switch to control the rear 3-point, we'll go ahead and lower it, and yes, it's lowering, but for lifting, we will notice that it will only go up to 80%, which was our upper limit. They are controlling the upper limits on both of them to make sure that the implement cannot come up and impact the cab and protect our tractor and our fenders. We're going to go ahead and we're going to lower both of them. We can see it coming down and lowering. The thing about it is we're noticing that we only went to 8% lowering, and we've only gone down on our linear switch is going very slowly for lowering our rear 3-point hitch. We do not have an implement on the rear 3-point hitch, so we don't have a lot of weight to be able to push that down. We should have a 50% lowering rate. So to go ahead and fix this, we're going to go back into tractor information. We're going to go into our front 3-point hitch, and we're going to apply down pressure. From here, we can set this down pressure. Now keep in mind, with some implements, they cannot take that much down pressure, and we could damage the implement if we tried to force down pressure. But on the front 3-point hitch, we just have our weights, which we know is capable of withstanding the force of this tractor. So on the front, we're going to crank it all the way up to 50 bar. We're going to return back out of the screen to save that change. So now we have down pressure. We're going to go into the rear 3-point hitch, and we're also going to go into our down pressure here. You're going to notice that on our screen, as I'm selecting and deselecting my down pressure, DW is just a float condition. And we select it again, you're going to see DW. That's when we actually have downforce. And we can see that we're going to achieve 24 bar of downforce now. We're going to exit out of here and save these changes. Now, when I go ahead and I grab a hold of the crossgate lever, and I raise and lower, you will see that it's raising and lowering. And also with down pressure, I'm going to go ahead and push it down. With down pressure, yes, it did lift the front of the tractor off of the ground, and we're up here at 0 right now for our bottom height. So our lowering limits do not work when you're in a linear mode, but the upper limits do. And also with down pressure, we're going to go to our number 1 linear switch, the number 5 linear switch, and now when we press down, we've got a faster lowering speed because we are actually getting down pressure, and it goes past the lowering limit. As you can see, we have lowering limits set, and even if we back them both completely off, we are still going to be able to go down to 0 when we push on the levers. The lowering limits are overridden at this point. We're going to go ahead and raise the front and the rear up about halfway. And just to show you that the joystick, I can use the raise and lower here, or I can use my crossgate to raise and lower here. The one thing to keep in mind is when I have another lever controlling the front and rear 3-point hitches, my switches no longer work. The switches will not work for the 3-point hitches when we have something else configured in. So if you ever run into a tractor, he says, I can't get my front and rear 3-point hitch to raise and lower, At that point, you will want to go back into your tractor information. You will want to go into your hydraulics and then your control switches, and you will find any of these has the front and rear 3-point hitch being controlled by another lever or button. At that point, it will not work. If we go back to our Fendt settings, that returns to our basic settings. And now at this point, when we pull on our switches, we can see that we're going to our raising and lowering limits for the front and rear 3-point hitches. Everything is working normal again as it did before. And it is stopping at our lowering limits with the switches.